Welcome to South Korea, home of K-pop, the world's smartest man, and many other things. Located in Asia, South Korea is mostly filled with dense mountains, with small valleys and narrow coastal plains. Some of these mountains include the Tibet Mountains that run along the eastern coastline, as well as the Sobek Mountains that run straight through the country. Mount Halla is the highest peak in South Korea, standing at 6,398 feet or 1,950 meters above sea level. South Korea is surrounded by three bodies of water: the Yellow Sea, the East Sea, and the Korea Strait. South Korea also has three major rivers: the Han, the Gum, and the Nakdong. All of these rivers have their sources in the Tibet Mountains, and almost all of them flow eastward into the Yellow Sea. The largest river in South Korea is the Nakdong, running at 326 miles from the Tibet Mountains to the Korea Strait. Major cities in South Korea include Seoul, the capital, Busan, and Incheon. Major attractions include Gyeongbokgung, which was the main royal palace of the Joseon dynasty, and the North Seoul Tower, which offers a panoramic view of the city, as well as a revolving restaurant above the city. If you're looking for something more scenic, go check out Seongsan Sunrise Peak. Seongsan Peak was a crater created by hydrovolcanic activity over 5,000 years ago on Jeju Island. The first major kingdoms in Korea date all the way back to 700 BC with the Gojoseon Kingdom. After the Gojoseon-Han War, the Gojoseon Kingdom split into three major kingdoms: the Goguryeo, the Baekje, and the Sia dynasties. The Goguryeo and the Baekje dynasties would last until 1600 AD, and the Sia dynasty would end in 900 AD. Korea would continue to be split into kingdoms until 1918 with the Goryeo Empire. Japan would eventually take over the Korean Empire in 1910 until the end of World War II in 1945. The Cold War would then split Korea into two at the 38th parallel, with the North siding with the Soviet Union and communism, and the South siding with the United States and democracy. In 1950, the South declared independence from the North, sparking an invasion from the North. This would start the Korean War. 3 years later, an armistice was signed by both sides, ending the Korean War. The total cost would be 2 million lives. However, this would not be the last we see of this conflict. In 1986, the South Korean constitution was changed to allow for direct election for the president, and in 1988, the first free parliamentary election is held. In June of 2002, North and South Korea would engage in a naval battle, and in 2009, North Korea would end all of its political and military deals with the South. Till this day, North and South Korea continue to fight in minor battles over territory. South Korea currently possesses a republic government. Its system of government is much like that of the United States and Great Britain. The government is split into three divisions: the legislative, judicial, and executive branches. The legislative branch consists of the National Assembly of South Korea, which is a unicameral body with 300 elected representatives. The judicial branch contains a Supreme Court, a constitutional court, regional courts, and local district courts. The Supreme Court stands on top, with the Constitutional Court being a separate part of the Supreme Court that deals with constitutional review. The executive branch is headed by the president, who is elected by the people. The president acts as the head of state, head of government, and commander-in-chief. The president holds the power to declare war, as well as propose legislation to the National Assembly. The president may only run for one 5-year term, with no extensions allowed. The current president of South Korea is Moon Jae-in. After the president comes the prime minister. Currently, South Korea contains 17 ministries, including the Ministry of Strategy and Finance, the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Education, and so on. Breaking news: North Korea has fired yet another missile into South Korean waters. However, the launch was deemed a failure as the projectile broke up in mid-flight. The regime seeks to build nuclear-tipped ICBMs that could reach the United States mainland and possibly conquer the South. In other news, South Korea's Park Geun-hye to stand trial for corruption. The former president was accused of pressuring firms such as Samsung to pay millions in bribes in return for business favors. She was impeached back in December of 2016, putting the newly elected Moon Jae-in in charge of the state. Moon Jae was elected just this last month in a landslide victory. The former human rights lawyer has been open about meeting North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un to bring peace to the Korean peninsula. This has been WAP News, keeping you up to date on everything worldwide. And now, back to your regularly scheduled program. According to Heritage.org, South Korea's economy currently ranks 23rd in the world, behind countries like Iceland and the United States. South Korea's GDP is heavily dependent on trade. The value of imports and exports combined equals to a staggering 85% of South Korea's total $1.378 trillion GDP. South Korea's won is equivalent to 9/10,000th of $1 US. In the realm of military, Business Insider ranks South Korea in having the 7th strongest army in the world. With a potential attack from North Korea at any minute, South Korea is left with no choice but to have a large and capable army ready to mobilize at any moment. South Korea's military budget currently stands at $62.3 billion, as well as a mandatory military service to all of its citizens. In education, the Huffington Post puts South Korea and Finland at number 1, and in healthcare, US News puts South Korea at number 31. South Korea is also very rich in culture. Heavily influenced by the West, South Korea's biggest sports include table tennis, basketball, tennis, golf, ice hockey, baseball, archery, and many others. South Korea has a total of 264 Summer Olympic medals, with 23 gold medals in archery, the highest in the world in that sport. South Korea has also hosted the 2002 FIFA World Cup, which was also when they had their best performance, ending in 4th place. South Korea also has a huge esports scene. Many of the Korean esports teams are sponsored by companies such as Razer Incorporated, Samsung, and SK Telecom. Many of their teams go on to win world championships in games such as StarCraft, Overwatch, and League of Legends. South Korea's music is also heavily influenced by the West. Korean pop, or K-pop for short, is very much like American and European pop. The biggest K-pop groups include Hot, Big Bang,
Bang bang bang, bang bang bang,
and BTS. South Korean art is typically depicted in the form of calligraphy, music, painting, and pottery. They are often marked by the use of natural forms, surface decorations, and bold colors. Dance is a very significant element in traditional Korean culture. Special dances are performed as part of many annual festivals and celebrations. Traditional Korean literature typically consists of genres such as epics, poetry, religious texts, plays, comedies, and so on. These texts began to flourish during the 3rd century and peaked during the 18th century. According to the CIA, 27.6% of the total South Korean population believes in some form of Christianity. Buddhism is the runner-up with 15.5% of the people practicing the religion in South Korea. However, 56.9% of people do not believe or practice a religion in the country. A majority of the people in South Korea speak Korean, with English being taught in junior high and high school. South Korea is mostly homogeneous, with over 90% of the population being Korean. Currently, South Korea's gender ratio is 1.07 males to females. Thanks for watching, and don't forget, Gonugain goes EEG mala.